last tape, we got this bench run in the garage. Got some decent exhaust little extensions on here so it didn't get so oily. Pretty much got all our batteries together. We have the world's record supply of batteries here. We're trying to get everything charged up. In the next couple of days, we're going to get a flight. One way or another. The weather does not look promising, but we're very patient. And we have plenty of other things to do here in the shop. And I've got every battery that I have and every spare battery, electric starter batteries. I want to have everything ready for our first day. Putting all this stuff in one box. I've made a box dedicated for all the B-25 spare parts. And as we do the countdown, it's just as exciting as can be. It just couldn't be a lot more fun than this. It's been a long time coming, but we're ready. In today's mail, we got some nice photos here from Chip Smith. Chip Smith is Gary Lutz's flying partner. But these are photos that were taken before he had it finally assembled, and you'll see the hinges. It looks like he's using the Bob Brookins method of don't bother gluing the hinges in until after you fly the plane 3 times. But really neat little paint job going here. And Chip Smith has been going out by Chuck Holsapple, one of our good friends from years gone by, helping him trim the plane. Really neat. And I think Casper the Ghost here, it looks like what he did. He made a built-up nose and a profile body. It's kind of an unusual plane, kind of neat in fact. Anyway, from our friend Chip Smith, who was, he basically spent the whole Nats with us too. Really neat guy. We look forward to flying with him in the future. Now I want to just go through a couple of the details. Carbon fiber motor mount crutches. We made the original one that was in the carbon fiber Miss Ashley fuselage. We made the one for the Sato 91 that's in the Typhoon. A few other people have experimented on their own, and I've never heard back one way or another. People have borrowed the mold and whatever. But these two have been real successful for one reason. One of the things that I really like about this whole thing is as years go by, see what I'm trying to do in a roundabout way is I've got a lot of older airplanes that are 10, 15 years old, and what I look at them and I say, what are the first things that go? The wings never wear out. The wings are forever. The bodies wear out. The bodies get oil soaked, and most of all the crutches get oil soaked. And then at that point in time, it gets a little just crazy labor intensive to try to fix them, but it's that oil that kills everything, and it's because the oil gets absorbed into the wood, the motor mounts split, the blind nuts come up. So my original thought was if you could at least make that part and be able to attach it to the plywood with secondary bonding resin, which we've been able to do. That's not been a problem. The thing that we're trying to come up with is a final design, because this year's plane is going to use Rojet power, both of them are, and Les's are too, so it pays to make the mold. We've done that on the previous tape, and now we want to lay one of these carbon crutches up, which is actually going to be, I'm going to call this a stage 3. Actually, this should be number 2. Should be the 2003 airplanes, and there should ultimately be 4 of them at some point in time. So this is going to be what we hope is going to evolve. It evolved into the Typhoon design. We have the molds for all these original ones, but now we want to make the mold that we just completed on the last video. We want to make up a part. What we're looking for is a little bit lighter than wood. But that, I don't find that to be a real significant thing. Stronger? Well, all you have to do is make one to see how strong it is. But the big one, that it doesn't get oil soaked as years go by. So when we get, let's say for instance Strega now, Brian Manow has Strega, The only part of that that's really marginal, we're really running out of the oil to squeeze out of the motor mounts, and that front of the fuselage, you literally can squeeze it and it's like a sponge. Still flies, yeah, been repaired yet, but it's that oil that's the killer. And one of the things the carbon fiber motor mounts eliminate out of that problem, hopefully, is the fact they never absorb oil. Everything I do evolves. It evolves for me, and I try to pass that information on to other people that might be interested in knowing about it. The original concept of this I had made, and this, I don't know how many years ago, this was quite a few years ago, I had this great idea I was going to do this. And so I took a crutch that at that time was for a Tiger 60, laid the whole crutch out in a mold, and just filled it full of carbon fiber with every direction, every dimension. And in the middle of it, back here, what I did, I took some arrow shafts, sealed the ends up with little caps of balsa, and filled this full of arrow shafts, thinking, oh boy, what a great invention this will be. Well, it was a great invention. The only problem is it was too heavy. We then made, and I don't know how many, I've probably got 4 or 5 different molds that I never even bothered to put on video because they weren't really successful. I took the same thing and tried to put pieces of balsa wood inside, cross-grain balsa, so that it was encased this way. Again, problem was, it was just really too heavy. And what happened is the motor mount itself was so strong you could mount a Chevy. Well, we don't need it that strong. We don't need to be able to mount a Chrysler Hemi to it. Then that evolved into trying to make the ones that we actually did use. We made the mount part like this, put what amounted to be a rib in the back, and tapered this down to about 1/8 of an inch, and put some formers in it. Well, that one worked fine. It was lighter than the wood crutch. It was stronger. We didn't need blind nuts. Ultimately, I didn't realize we wouldn't need the blind nuts because you could thread the carbon. And as long as you catch the whole length of the mount and thread, you're never going to wear the threads out. Well, this evolved into, and again, everything's evolving. We want to mold the front piece. This is Les Demet's little design here that we're working off, kind of, but it does fit a Cardinal and an SV11 and all of the popular planes. And what we're trying to do is, again, taper the mounts, but this time I'm going to have, similar to an air coupe wing, which I know intimately, we will have some aluminum pads on this because I just feel like I sleep better at night knowing there's aluminum there. And what it does, it allows me then at the last minute, if I really, and I've already had to do this, if I really need to lower the mounts another 1/8 of an inch to get the motor run that I want, it gives me a little insurance policy that I'm not going to run out of motor mount shim. So this was the final design of probably 4 or 5 of them. I'd have to go count the old molds. The last 2 of which were pretty successful. This one I think is going to be even more successful. This is the one we're going to hopefully be able to use in the 4 planes that we're going to build on video this year, or that we hope to build on video. And because Les Demet is very aggressive about getting a lot of these projects going, we're able to do a lot more than we would if we were just doing this on our own. Some tips that I've learned, maybe it would be safe to say learned them the hard way, but now that we've learned them, we're able to pass them on to other modelers that may want to use this. Probably the biggest one here, you have a limited amount of time, and by the way, the resin we're going to use is Epon 862, and the curing agent is Epicure. This is the same resin that we've made propellers out of. It's a structural resin. It's the resin we used on our carbon fiber wing. It is the only appropriate resin that I know of. Other resins are a maybe, and for whatever reason may not be the resin of choice. This would definitely do the job in this case, and we have some that are 3 and 4 years old that haven't failed yet, so we're kind of satisfied that this is the best choice. You wouldn't want to use, let's say, polyester resin or 5-minute SIG epoxy or something. But here's the tricks and tips that'll make it very easy to do, is cut all the carbon fiber ahead of time. Cut up. Wayne Triven, who did most of the research on this type of work and helped me every step of the way, has a saying, cut the paper dolls ahead of time, so when you mix the resin, you have a limited amount of time. You can just drop the paper dolls right in place. Again, we prefer EPON 862 and Epicure, and I think we have a bird coming to attack us here. We prefer having birds in the wild, not... Get out of here! Cool shop conditions. We're in the middle of the summer, but leaving the air conditioner on overnight is always a good idea. If we can get the shop conditions down around 65 degrees, that's always nice. Always, always, always wear rubber gloves when you're using EPON resin. A mask, rubber gloves. Now, I don't use a mask while I'm shooting video, but as soon as the video camera goes off, I get my Wilson mask on. Now, the other thing, I've heard of people that have tried to post-cure, and the post-cure is 212 for 2 hours for this particular job. You don't want to do that in your family oven. You really don't want to do that. But if you don't have access to a post-cure oven, in the worst of all worlds, you can mail it to me and mail me the postage. I'll post-cure it for you and I'll send it back to you. I'll just wait till I'm doing one of my parts and we'll do 2 of them together. Because you can put as many as you want. I have a separate dedicated, it's actually an oven that you can cure 2 people in, but you sure don't want to do it in your family oven. That's a no-no. So anyway, having said that, I'm going to get the material ready. I'm going to get the bird in the cage because he definitely does. You don't want him around when you're doing this kind of work. He steps in the resin and walks up your arm and stuff. And we're going to get ready, and this is going to be the first layup of this mold for this year's carbon fiber crutch. This actually is the beginning of the 2003, the first part we're going to make that's going to be on the 2003 planes. First step on any molding layup, get the table clean and get some newspaper laid out on the whole tabletop. You may not think that's important, or you think, well, I won't be that sloppy, I won't drip any on the floor. Some of the obvious things, don't be wearing your best clothing that you'd be wearing to a church. In fact, only just the oldest bird, get off me. You're going in the cage. Anyway, I want to have a nice big area because what I'm going to do is, step 1, I'm going to cut all the carbon material out ahead of time. I want to have the material ready to go because once we mix the resin, we're on about a half-hour time window. And during that half an hour, the objective of doing this is to get as much carbon and as little resin packed into the mold. The part will be lighter and stronger if you have more carbon and less resin. That's the ultimate objective here. We have the mold. We want to cut up all the pieces of carbon. We have various sizes and thicknesses. The idea being we want to get as much cross grain as we can where the bolts are going to go and all unidirectional from that point back, and a lot of it with one strand going front to back. So what I'll try to do is get a lot of the strands cut just the length of the mold. Then I want to interconnect them with long skinny pieces just to build strength, and then I want to cap it with a piece of this 3-ounce unidirectional, or maybe I'll have to see if it lays in at 2, one with the grain going one way and one with the grain going the other way because it is unidirectional. And this is the mold we made on the previous video. The sheet of solid Teflon that we're going to, when the mold is completely packed, and we're going to try to pack as much of the carbon in there as we can, lay this on top and get some kind of, maybe I'll look ahead of time, get a piece of balsa wood this size, so it'll be a nice flat. What I want is something perfectly flat here if I can get it. A piece of really straight balsa wood that'll sit on top of the mold, and then I can put some weights up here. So that looks like that'll be done. See, what I'm doing is I'm working from the top down. So I have my cap, I have my support done. Next step is to just cut up the carbon. I want all the carbon cut ahead of time. For the first couple of times I worked with this material, I'd wait till I actually had the resin mixed and then go cut this, and I'd always run out of time and it would start getting, the material would start kicking off. Well, this is an important step. This is a step, the kind of stuff you learn the hard way, I guess. Now, this rubber mold material that we use, Mold Max 30, doesn't require a release agent. However, if we were going to try to make, we're going to try to make a limited amount of parts, probably 10 out of this mold, for our 4 ships, or maybe Les will want his own mold, I'm not sure yet. Or if somebody has a custom crutch they want to mold, we certainly can help them out with that. But if we were going to try to make, for instance, 100 parts from this mold, then we'd start using mold release agent right in the beginning. because we're not going to try to do that, we're just going to try to keep this clean right to the very end here till we start laying resin in there. We really don't need a release agent for the first 10, 15, even they say 30 parts, but I'd be willing to bet it's more like 20. One of the few areas, one of the few molds we have where you really can use up some of the scrap 3-ounce cloth. That turns out to be, and so what I'm just using is these are parts that have been left over from other molds, and I'm trying to make a pattern first, and then I'll just try to replicate it. And because right up in this area I want to have some cross grain, so I want to lay some of these parts in there. I don't want to have all unidirectional. Everything else can be unidirectional except for right by the motor mount bolts. Adding an extra piece of Teflon the exact shape of the outside, because this drops down in here, and I want to have a piece of carbon going the whole length of the part, and then I'll remove the part I need up here for the motor. But this will add a lot of strength just having it in one piece, no joints, as the final thing. And so that little piece will fit in there. I'll put another piece of Teflon on top, and then my weights, and that should flatten it all down and squeeze out a lot of the extra resin. I can just use the tape as a pattern to cut that piece out. Some of the tips that I've learned the hard way. One is when you're mixing EPON, you want real good ventilation. In this case, we have our fans and our air conditioners going. Second thing you want to do is when you think it's mixed, you want to mix it at least 2 minutes more. You want to get every drop in suspension. You want to get the mix accurate for the amount you're using. You also never stir it with a wooden stirrer, with a lollipop stick or something. Stir it with, well, in this case I've used an Allen wrench. I did a fuselage layup with about $300 worth of material one day and didn't have the screwdriver I normally use, and what I did, I used a wooden stick. Part never hardened. And not only is it embarrassing, and the video is hard to say. I know everybody had a good laugh over it, but it's expensive. Not only that, it gets frustrating. Anyway, once this is totally mixed, then I can mix it just another 2 minutes. Fans going, the air conditioner's going, try to get the place as cool as possible. Okay, now step one on this mold is going to be, and we're going to work at this pretty aggressively now because we're in our window of opportunity. I want to get the whole inside of the mold coated with resin if I can. And this part of it always gets a little sloppy. The first time you do it, sometimes you get intimidated by it, but if you just work quickly. Now the other thing you can do if you want to, and I'm going to open the mold up like this to try to get some extra resin down in there. And this is where a mold like a rubber mold really is to your advantage. A hard mold, you wouldn't be able to do this. But it's the packing operation that's going to really count here. What we have to do is pack this with as much carbon fiber as we possibly can, so that the ultimate mix is going to be a small amount of resin and a big amount of carbon, and the rest of this can just sit up on top here. It's not going to go anywhere. It's all going to get squeegeed out at the end anyway. But this is a good way to ensure you don't trap a big air bubble or something down in there. Let me get my material. Now what I did, I cut the same amount of pieces for each side, thinking, well, that would be some help. And now to pack the material in. Any way you can get it in, you just want to get it packed in. And the thing is, we want to connect all these little pieces that go across. So once we get a piece on each edge, Then we're going to lay a piece with no joint in there. I have some real long pieces. We'll go across there. This can get flattened out. In theory, the best thing of all would be if you could do this without a single joint, just one continuous piece of carbon. But there's a practical side of this. You have to be able to do it. It's not only like you have to be able to design it, you have to be able to do it. Pack all that carbon right down in there. All the extra is going to float to the surface eventually, but I don't want to have any dry spots. Now what I want to try to do here, before I go any further, so I have a piece right up on top, I want to take a real long piece, and this is one of the things that, until I lay a mold up once or twice, I don't know exactly how long to cut these pieces, but I can lay this piece in here. And now the idea is to get it that I don't have joints. Get it down in there. Just keep packing it in. The resin will come to the surface. I may need to get a thinner tool to pack this with. This takes time. This side, since it's bigger, the material will just lay right in. It goes in best just by putting it in bare-handed like that. Again, it gets sloppy, but you know, all modeling gets sloppy at some point. Sanding silver gets sloppy, that's for sure. And this way we really will be able to get a lot more carbon in here than we would any other way that I know of. Anyway, we're going to continue this for the next 15 to 20 minutes off camera, just packing and continuously flipping, putting a lot of extra little carbon pieces up here to cross grains, and then the final coat on the top. Now these pieces with the cross grain, I'm just filling in the mounts as I go along. Again, while it looks real sloppy, and it is, ultimately, once the resin kicks off, you have a part. And making a propeller is no different than this. You'd have a mold. You'd have a big mess on your hands for some amount of time. And then you'd have a propeller. But by filling these in and trying to squeeze out all the resin, so what's good about pre-cutting these parts, once I get about half of them in, then I'll lay some more strips this way. And then the last thing, weave some more in from the top. I'm trying to interconnect every joint here. I'm trying to engineer it up that way. Now it looks like we're going to need a little more resin than I originally anticipated. It's better to mix two small batches than one big batch tends to go off too quickly. Then you can pack any of the little scraps, little hairs just right in there. Every one of them is going to add to the strength of the part eventually. And now we can interconnect them this way, just by having one that's unidirectional right on top. Step, I covered everything up. a piece of 3-ounce carbon. I'm trying to squeegee out a good amount of the resin now anyway and flatten it if I can. Impression coming out as you squeegee out some of the carbon. Squeegee out the resin, not the carbon. See right back here I have a low spot for some reason. Now what I'm going to do on top of this is get that piece I made and see if I can center this. This is solid TFE, solid Teflon. And we're trying to get rid of all the air bubbles if we can. I can feel we're missing a spot over here. Should get rid of, in theory, get rid of most of or all of the air bubbles. This will be another sheet of TFE. Now we can take that piece of wood, get some weights on here. What we got for weights? Now I got a more even distribution on the weight because that's basically going to sit there for 24 hours and then we'll pull it apart. But everybody knows what today is. Here we got fans going, we got everything going. And we were expecting, tonight is the night we're going to go down the field and get the barrels back for our field, lay out the field, and maybe we were hoping even get a flight on a B-25. Well, guess what? Take a look. I don't know. We're certainly not going to risk anything here, but what a mess. After a summer of no rain at all, we have coming up on B-25 flight day, and we have 3 days of just pouring rain. What we try to do is with each crutch that we make, we try to improve the methods we use, the material we use, and the improvements we can use, and upgrade everything. Well, the one that was in the Typhoon, I would say, is just about as durable and bulletproof and not a drop of oil on it. So if we can come up with even just a tie with that, I think we're going to be in real good shape for the year to come. Well, it's that day. It's that lucky day, and you can see yesterday we were here all night putting up the barrels and putting up the ropes, getting our field back, and it's the part where we fly is relatively dry, but still kind of wet and definitely damp. I'm waiting for Rich to get here. Rich is going to hopefully give me a hand, and we're hopefully going to get a flight on a B-25, or at least get something, go home knowing one way or another here. Really have to thank Les Demet for all the help he's been getting that rack together, getting all the parts that go together. One of the biggest problems we have, believe it or not, is the tires go flat no matter where you lay the model, so I cut these Hairspray containers up. Try to keep the bottom of the wheel round so we would be able to get a decent roll out here. But again, the problem is, not really a problem, but the field is drying up and it should be a nice day later on today, but it'll give us a little time to get everything ready. This will be the first flight of the B-25, hopefully. See what an ordeal. See if you can figure out. That's got to stay under there till both of the motors are running. Okay? How are you going to launch it? You have to hold it right in by the tail. Oh, you want me to launch it? Yeah, you got to hold it right in by the tail, not outside the body by even 1/4 of an inch, right up against. You want Rolex Rich to roll off? Rolex Rich. I demand nothing but the worst from my friends. It looks like I'm going to get it too. Rolex Rich is in action. You're having an overflow. You don't get as many air bubbles because the tanks are sitting with the back up. And it looks like the wind is already coming up. Yeah, it is. I can't believe it. Well, today it's going to be windy. They already I took my plane down, but maybe we'll even get one flight in. Just keep an eye open for around it with the looks of going. They still aren't used to this. No, they are. They are. I was hoping we have a little bit better weather, but you have a skid in that? Yeah. I gotta get a piece of carpet so you can just underneath it. Anyway, until we get a real routine down here, I don't know if I wish I had as much money as you. So I guess we're even. That'd be a miracle if we get both of these started. I'd have no problem. Expenses. My kids are done with college. You should tell your kids get a job at McDonald's and all that. That works. Somehow I don't think that is. I gotta go down to the parts department in London City. In fact, I want to see if I can replace that one. Shitty. Yeah. Just hope the windows will come up and look at this. If I get one flight each, that'll be good. $5, you just buy it in a watch.
This is 26 years old. This is inexpensive. It's a cheap shaker.
I couldn't figure out how to get it on Indiana time. I just bought a watch in Indiana. I had a $5 watch. All right, it's fuel.
I never reset my watch.
Yeah, it's fuel.
In Indiana, I was still using Eastern Standard Time.
All right, kid. Let's see if we can get one of them started anyway. This ought to be a thrill.
Nuts. This guy lost his marbles completely.
All right, now remember, you got to hold it by the tail inside. if we get the both motors running, close to the body as you can. At the last thing, I'll take this out and then go after the camera. And that should be David's last word. I think one of these was flooded. Which one? Yeah. I think this one was flooded, so let me take the plug out. This one's flooded. Oh, yeah, get that one ready. You know what a pain in the neck when you're running this, you never get the last little bit of fuel out because it's sitting level on a table. So it's always got some fuel in it. I'm going to have to figure out a way to pull this with that fuel out. You know what I'll get for the back? I'll get a piece of that, like a carpet thing, a carpet sample. I like that.
The double thing is going to be down here too, but I guess it's a little too early for him to get here.
No, he's got to work. He wants to come at 4 in the afternoon. It's going to be a hurricane. We're going to be out of here in less than an hour for this thing, so it's not looking real promising. Like I said though, even if I can get one flight and just see if the wing is level, I'll look out to you, see if that's level. That'll be a big thing. Okay.
Yeah, it's still unsettled, but it's going to be okay in a couple of days.
I hope you're right.
It's supposed to be the weather. 25 is flying. Maiden flight today. September 3rd, the year 2002.
got it just lighter. All right, bring it in. Put the handle over there.
You're not going up anymore?
No, take a flight and I'll let it cool off. It's not going to start right up anyway. Everybody's sitting in their living room laughing at me now. And I don't blame them.
I got scared.
Well, when I didn't, you know, I thought the inboard engine wouldn't cut so quick, but...
Well, you had it running a long time.
Oh yeah, for sure. So anyway, here we are. I'm exhausted, but it is off the ground now. It looks like, what'd you say, the wing looked pretty level?
It looked good.
And we got to get the starting routine. That was really, I should have just stopped the inboard engine and refueled it, that's for sure. As soon as the inboard engine quits, the flight's over. You can't play with the throttle because it really wiggles out on the end of the line. It was scary doing that. A couple of times I got to go look at this footage. But everything else seemed to work okay. I'm trying to think what else. We're just going to wait, let it cool down and give it another chance. What I decided to do here, because we have other people waiting to fly, what I thought would be appropriate here is I'm just going to leave the throttles wide open. I don't want to fool with the throttles during the flight on the next flight. And I'll start the outboard engine first so that the inboard, well, in theory that would work. But it's my own fault for not having any twin engine experience and realizing it. And I don't know, I got to go play that video back and see if that really, if it was as bad as it looked. It looked as scary as could be to me. Anyway, I guess I played that footage. I guess it was pretty scary. I don't know. Could have lost the plane there on the first flight. Anyway, Brian's here. Rich is here. We're going to wait our turn in the order then and just get a flight and not use the throttles at all. Just let the motors run wide open. Start the outboard one first. Maybe even let it run a minute or so and then hopefully not have it run out of gas. I guess it's okay. I guess this is just the stuff you got to figure out when you have a twin engine plane. It's just nothing. There's no way around it. everybody watching the tape over there, is the camera still running? That was flight number 2. You know, it lands by itself. It just comes in, drops the nose wheel, and down. All right, Rich. All right, don't let me hog up the good air here. It's still flyable. It's not bad.
No, I said.
Anyway, that was the second flight. Did some maneuvers. Looks like the props are still. The props are not the right props for that. I'm going to change the props before the next flight. What I really have to get probably is a set of matched APC 10.5, 5.5, which I don't think. Well, we'll find out if I have. But hey, 2 flights. That was the second flight. First flight, played with the throttle, landed it, did a lot of gyrations. I got to remember about that inboard motor, but still having problems starting the motors. I got to get a routine down, or else I have to figure some way of holding it upside down or something. But it just feels really good just to have a flight on it after all this time. Flights, it's an amazing, I guess you can hear it in my voice, an amazing good feeling to know it. I'll at least loop. And all my cheering section, they seem to be having a good time here launching it. Oh. Okay, flight 3, we have 10 6s instead of 11 6s, and we have green filters instead of black filters.
I definitely can do a stunt pattern. And with the day track, you can shut the goddamn thing off, right? Well, there's a stunt pattern, right? It's high inverted. I gotta put a little there. Hey, take care, guys. See ya. Thank you. It's high inverted, but I gotta look.
Yeah, it looks to me that the outboard plate is a little high when you're inverted.
Right. I
I
saw
couldn't
that.
really tell.
But the thing has so much tension because it's not. And it turns glass. It's like glass. Oh, Rich, you got a nice ball. It's like glass. You got a nice ball. There you go. Okay, go ahead.
I got it. Let me go document our adventures. Okay, first, most of a stunt pattern at real, what, 770?
7-7, yeah.
And of course, when we use the Z-Tron, we'll just shut it off at the end of the flight. What else? Can't even think what else. We still have to work on this starting routine. We're gonna have to come up with something. Definitely flew better with the little props. The motors were happier. Anyway, that was the third flight, and we got almost all of a stunt pattern in. So this is the flight 4. You know what I mean? Little
What, you got
End
three or
of
four flights?
end of flight 4.
You got 3 or 4.
Now for the next flight we had to move. We really didn't have a choice about moving the camera because the wind is moving, but it's moving constantly, so I can't zero it in. This will be flight 5 as soon as Rich is done flying. Again, the biggest problem so far, getting the motor started. We don't have the routine down yet. We don't have the amount of primes and chokes and flippity flips and whatever. But once that's done, I think we're going to be in really good shape. All right, this is going to be flight 5.
I just crashed over here. One shot at 7:30.
Yeah, and it ran about a minute and a half.
Yeah.
Okay, we still aren't using the throttle thing. I just want to get used to flying a plane. That flight was on braided lines, just to see if we had any gain or loss. Didn't seem like it made any difference. Again, the 10-inch props seem to be okay, but not great. I know the APCs will be better, and we have other props to try. But for right now, we're just trying to get some flights, and it seems to have been inverted. The wing is up a little bit. I'll either need a tweak, a tab, or something out there. And we missed the wind for the whole flight, so well, we'll try it this way. In fact, for the next flight, it's you can't really tell. We're just going to have to play it by ear. Maybe that we'll see.
Anyway, I'm real happy.
Let's see if the battery's dead yet. Yeah, it's probably dead. Okay, anyway, what we did, Rich is donating some 4-pitch. We want to get some pitch out of the prop, but the air is so shifty, we're going to stop recording flights. I may get 1 or 2 more flights. So far, it's the starting thing. I need to make a battery box that I can get the clips off. I need to come up with a little better starting routine. The things that the plane does right seem incredibly good. The things it does wrong look like things that won't be a big deal to correct. And I think we're going to have a great time with this. For a first day out, it doesn't get a whole lot better than this. And we've taken advantage of what a really shifty, crazy kind of day. At the end of day 1, I think, what did we get, 6? The last couple of flights I didn't record, 6 or 7. A couple of things, because it's not a tune-type plane, it needs to be really cleaned up. We need to under-pitch the prop some. The 6-pitch is a little bit too much. It's like having 6-pitch props on a Schnurley motor. I'm going to take it home, check that all the bolts holding everything together, and recharge the Zetron batteries and whatever, but I'd say, of all the planes I've ever had out for the first day, this one is certainly not the worst one. And he certainly is. This is about as much fun as I've ever had at the flying field today. I'm starting to think it was well worth all the extra effort the whole B-25 team put in on this project. Day 2 starts for the B-25, and they were predicting high winds, so not real crazy about the fact we're going to add some weather today, but we will try to record some of the flights and some of the changes, little upgrade to a Maiden to the way we're doing things. The things we learned on our first day is we need some kind of a box to take care of all the batteries and junk that you need to start this. We also got a little mat, because when you put the tail wheel down, the skid, you would scratch the paint back there. Didn't like that. And my faithful launch man here is complaining his knees hurt. Anyway, we're ready to get ready for a mission on Tokyo here. If we can get some air. No telling, it's supposed to be thunder showers, but it looks like it's going to hang in. Day 2 of the B-25. There's tomorrow or the next day, we're going to make up a different battery system. See, the battery for this is very inconvenient too. So I guess we'll see, Richard. All right. Let's see if this is going to be any better than what we had.
You got to use a spray bottle?
Yeah, well, I'm going to try to do it without choking it even. Just use the electric starters and see if that works. Let's just see if this goes without. shut the camera off here. Well, I'm not sure if this angle is going to work. We're just going to try to shoot a couple of from back in this area, but the wind has been moved. There's very little wind. It's just been shifting and moving. But just the purpose of this is we have the low pitch props on the plane, and I just want to get a look at if it's going the speed I like, or I don't even know what I'm looking for. It's just having so much fun. It's just fun being here. already threw the whole first gallon of fuel, and it just gets more fun with each passing flight. The air is really crappy now. Trying to get the plane from several different angles. We know we need a little tab. We have a little tab on the bottom of the outboard wing. Maybe we're going to ultimately need a little flap tweak or something there, I'm not sure. But by having it from several, and I can just cut clips out of this and put it onto the real video. This is all done on a separate tape, then I just chop pieces out of it. Oh, you give Paul the information?
I gave him the Circle Brothers ticket, but what you should do is give him a phone number. Oh, yeah. All right, let me pull up all the way.
rain, so we're just going to put the camera away to be sure. Well, let's hope it's going to be a nice day. They're predicting some nice weather. We made a little bit of a trim tab adjustment. We made a bigger trim tab for the bottom of the outboard wing. Try to level that wing. Of course, the vertical CG, because it's very scale, is off a little bit. I also have some propellers to try today, and I'm hoping we can just get some flights. The thing about starting early in the morning like this is we get a couple of flights while it's relatively cool. It's about 60 degrees, and by the end of the day, the last couple of days, it's been up in the 90s. So we get a nice wide range of testing time, all in one session. Yeah, what Rich is doing back there, but we're wasting time. The breeze is already coming up, and we hope we're going to get 2, 3, 4 flights, whatever we can get today. The little pad for Richard has worked out well. Protect his little tender knees. Again, every day with this, the main thing we've gotten under control is the starting. That's been dead reliable on day 2. Let's hope it's reliable on day 3. Seems like that part of it. We'd like to test some of the other props we have today. I'd like to just basically get some flights. If I can ever get Jimmy Doolittle's assistant over here. Jimmy Doolittle is so busy with this. I don't know why he needs a sign. The only people who ever come here are Korean. They don't even speak English, so he worries about this sign. But anyway, we're going to go through our starting fueling routine and try to get a couple of flights. Okay.
You got your nice little pad for you so your little knees don't get dirty.
Choke these suckers?
No, I'm going to try it just enough.
This worked good yesterday.
You didn't choke got it? No, didn't do anything.
very, very exciting. What we're doing, I'm using 10% fuel. I may have to cut back to 5. In the beginning it was running 9 minutes because I was running the motors harder and harder and harder. Now I've backed out onto where they run a little slower, and it's, of course, it's using more fuel. Now you can bet that I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but it did an engine shut off in the overhead 8, and I know Paul lost the B17 when exactly that happened to him on several of the motors, so I guess we ducked the bullet. Now this will probably be the last flight because the wind is really starting to kick up. Richard's coming
and then I'll make my line go. Oh, it had a nice motor on that thing.
Oh, you inverted.
Looked okay. You know, it's funny, when the two engines pour at the same time, it sounds really wild.
Yeah, it's actually